tell you, no matter your political background, that the best chance we have to give our babies a better life is to elect Donald Trump President of the United States.
His family was compromised. When I look out there and I see Donald Trump, I think about how his business was compromised.
I'm no politician and I don't want to be, but I do care about the truth. And the truth is that the media has lied to us about Donald Trump.
When they took a shot at my hero.
They say Trump, Trump!
Yeah, he was doing a selfie. There he goes.
Check my hits, I know it stinks in here, cause Trump's the You know who we voting for? We voting Donald Trump, baby. Donald Trump, baby. America needs saving. America needs
Trumpomania, make America great again.
The independent presidential candidate and possible election spoiler, now a supporter of former President Donald Trump. Both men together on stage for the first time.
Don't you want a president who's going to get us out of the wars and who's going to rebuild the middle class in this country?
The two bonding over shared assassination events. In July, Trump injured in an attempted assassination. RFK Jr.'s uncle, Democratic President John F. Kennedy, and his father, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, both assassinated.
Hey guys, you want to shake?
Everybody, let's get into it. Get stupid, get retarded, get retarded, get retarded. Let's get retarded. Let's get retarded in here. 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 Yeah. Lose control of body and soul. Don't move too fast, people just take it slow. Don't get ahead, just jump into it. Y'all hear about it? The P's will do it. Get started, get stupid. Don't worry about it, people will walk you through it step by step like the infinite kid. Inch by inch with the new solution. Transmit hits with no delusion. That's how we move it. Everybody, let's get into it. And get stupid, get retarded, get retarded, get retarded. Let's get retarded. Let's get retarded in here. 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 Yeah. Come on, y'all. Let's get Let's get right now, get Let's get right now, get Let's get Let's get ill, that's the deal. Out the gate, and we'll bring the bug dot drill. Lose your mind, this is the time. You can't stand still, twist and bang your spine. Bob your head like epilepsy. Up inside your club or in your belly. Get messy, loud and sick. Your mind fast, no more on another head trip. Come them now, do not correct it. Let's get ignorant, let's get hectic. Everybody, let's get into it. Get stupid, get retarded, get retarded, get retarded. Let's get retarded. Let's get retarded in here. Let's get retarded.
play up some sound here, guys, and see if he says anything.
Good.
So, through here, the phone. I'm just going to scan this QR code here with this phone if you want to take that from him. Scan that QR code right here. Take pictures. Oh, right there. Right there. Just that one. Slight technical difficulty.
All right. And fantastic, it went through. Great. I need to refresh the invoice.
Invoice?
Can we refresh the invoice?
Oh, it did go through. All right, we're done.
Perfect.
The first transaction by a president on the Bitcoin protocol. History.
You know what that means, John? That's history. History of the making. Hello, everybody. I got to go back and see those people.
All right, let's go.
Join me live on Twitter Spaces at 8 p.m. this September 16th for the launch of World Liberty Financial. We're embracing the future with crypto and leaving the slow and outdated big banks behind.
All right, on this Tech Tuesday, former President Donald Trump rolling out a brand new cryptocurrency platform, casting himself as the crypto candidate who will end the Biden-Harris regulatory crackdown. Listen.
They've been very hostile toward crypto, toward all of it, and extremely hostile, like nobody can believe. Nobody even understands why. My attitude is different. If we don't do it, China's going to do it. China's doing it anyway. They are. But if we don't do it, we're not going to be the biggest, and we have to be the biggest and the best.
All right, on this Tech Tuesday, Kurt the Cyber Guy joins us live. Kurt, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
What is this?
All right, well, it's now the Trump family is in the crypto business, and mainly this came from the kids. And ironically, last Sunday, when he was on the golf course and the big, horrible thing happened, that was one of his friends that got him involved in this. They've been working on this for about 9 months, and you want to keep your eye on this. You want to just see where this goes. So it's not for sale yet, but they'll keep about 20% of it, and then the rest will be open to the market, about 63% of it. And World Liberty Finance, you should keep your eye on that when it comes out.
All right.
My plan will rapidly defeat inflation, quickly bring down prices, and reignite explosive economic growth. I'm pledging today that in my second term, we will eliminate a minimum of 10 old regulations for every one new regulation. We'll be able to do that quite easily, actually. And instead of attacking industries of the future, we will embrace them, including making America the world capital for crypto and Bitcoin. At the suggestion of Elon Musk, who has given me his complete and total endorsement. That's nice. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. It's very, very much appreciated. I will create a government efficiency commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms. We need to do it. Can't go on the way we are now. And Elon, because he's not very busy, has agreed to head that task force. Be interesting. If he has the time, that'd be a good one to do it. But he's agreed to do it.
If Trump wins, and obviously I suspect there are people with mixed feelings about whether that should happen, but we do have an opportunity to do kind of a once-in-a-lifetime deregulation and reduction in the size of government. Because the other thing, besides the regulations, America is also going bankrupt extremely quickly. And everyone seems to be sort of whistling past the graveyard on this one. But
they're all grabbing the silverware. Everyone's stuffing their pockets in the silverware before the Titanic sinks.
Well, the Defense Department budget is a very big budget. Okay, it's $1 trillion a year. DoD, Intel, it's $1 trillion. And interest payments on the national debt just exceeded the Defense Department budget. They're over $1 trillion a year, just in interest, and rising. We're adding $1 trillion to our debt, which our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay somehow. Every 3 months, and then soon it's going to be every 2 months, and then every month, and then the only thing we'll be able to pay is interest. And if this is, it's just it's just like a person at scale that has racked up too much credit card debt, and this does not have a good ending.
And to help Americans who are buried in crushing credit card debt under the Kamala Harris economy, we will have a temporary 10% cap on credit card interest rates because they're paying 20 and 25% and they're getting decimated. So it'll be a temporary 10% cap. But look, this is...
I grew up around a lot of Jewish people. I went to Hebrew preschool, Rachel Spiro in South Africa. My name is very Jewish.
I will tell you that for the past 10 years, people have assumed in my community that you were Jewish until I informed them otherwise.
Yeah.
Elon is a pretty Jewish name.
He is super Jewish.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson and I traveled to the Holy Land to film content that will only be available for our subscribers. We're going to take you along as we tour some of the holiest places in Judaism and Christianity. You'll learn about history, faith, and politics from beautiful locations in the cradle of civilization. We also had the privilege of sitting down with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
How are you?
This is a freewheeling conversation.
This is a freewheeling conversation. Talking about politics, Ukraine, and Russia, and how Netanyahu stood his ground against Barack Obama.
Oh, we can talk about this. This is going to be fun.
You don't want to miss it. It's only available on Daily Wire Plus. Join now to get access.
History will not give us an unlimited provision of miracles. If we don't make it now, we'll never make it.
It's all happening right here. Join us now.
And then I went to Israel when I was 13. Visited Masada. I'm certainly checking the boxes on a lot of things.
Smaller sectors, so I mentioned the story of a Czech family company. Thank you very much for taking our invitation. Ben, please.
Richest person in the world. You started 3 of the biggest companies in history.
Let's start a worry.
You went from being golden boy, we all love you, everyone loves you.
Wasn't that long ago?
You're coming in to save free speech.
The biggest deception is the choice of narrative. Some of this is really just communism rebranded. Nobody breaks ranks. And now we have X that breaks ranks.
It feels like right now innovators are under attack. Limited flow of information allows for atrocities to happen.
Government is the ultimate corporation and has a monopoly on violence.
Like you said, most of my friends are Jewish, just worked out that way. So sometimes I guess maybe I forget. Am I Jewish? I'm Jewish. Aspirationally Jewish.
Our first question is whether you support Israel's goal to completely destroy Hamas.
Okay, so let me just explain why it's so sad. If I were president, you would have never been attacked because Iran was broke. They had no money. China couldn't buy oil from them because otherwise China wouldn't be able to deal with the United States. I said to China, I said to many nations, 47 nations, I spoke to many of them personally, if you buy oil from Iran, you will not do any business in the United States and we're going to tariff your products. And Iran did almost no oil business, you know that. Nobody would buy oil because of me. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for anybody. And now they're sitting with $221 billion in cash, and they control Iraq, which has $300 billion in cash. Stupidly, the United States went in and blew everything up. You know, you had 2 countries that were sort of equal in power, and one of them got blown up by the United States, and now Iran has a big advantage in the Middle East over a lot of other countries. When I saw October 7th, it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen because there was no reason for it. They would have never, ever done that For two reasons. Number one, they were broke, and number two, I was the president. They would have never done that because they knew there would have been very big consequences. All right. That being said, you have to finish up your war. You have to finish it up. You got to get it done. And I'm sure you'll do that. And we got to get to peace. You can't have this going on. And I will say Israel has to be very careful because you're losing a lot of the world. You're losing a lot of support. But you have to finish up. You have to get the job done. And you have to get on to peace. Well, look, there has been no president better to Israel than me. Iran wanted to make a deal. And with the deal, 90% of the deal that I want to make is no nuclear weapon. I'm a very loyal person. I've been loyal to Israel. I've been the best president in history by a factor of 10 to Israel because of all the things I do. The embassy, Jerusalem being the capital, the best location for the embassy, and getting the embassy built. But then you have Abraham Accords, and then you have Golan Heights.
I want to show with you a question that in our minds, every leader in the world should reply. How would you react if, God forbid, it was your children or grandchildren who were kidnapped by Hamas or suffering the horrors that so many Israelis were going through on October 7?
On October 7, I would say I would act very much the same way as you did. You'd have to be crazy not to. Only a fool would not do that. That was a horrible attack. But it was an attack that I blame on Biden because they have no respect for him. He can't put two sentences together. He can't talk. He's a very dumb person. He's a dumb person. You're in a very dangerous neighborhood. And with Iran getting a nuclear weapon, once they have a nuclear weapon, you'll be speaking to them a lot differently than you're speaking right now. They would have never had a nuclear weapon with me. They understood that. They would never have
And
had.
they will not have a nuclear weapon with you if you are re-elected?
They will never have a nuclear weapon, no. But you have a long time to go. They could have a nuclear weapon in 35 days, right? I have 7 months to go and 9 months to take office. A lot of bad things can happen in that. That's a lot. That's like an eternity. 7 months in this world, and especially in the Middle East where it's so combative and so combustible. And this would be a time, if we had a real president, if we had a president that knew what he was doing, that could put two sentences together, that could get solved very quickly.
Thank you
Mr. President, thank you very much for this interview.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago. And your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing. And the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. we were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics,
lies,
and also
grievances,
unions.
and
Unions
name
are gonna be
calling.
affected.
What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before.
Why do we even have inflation? In the first place, what's the root cause of it? None of them will tell you this. Trump was talking for more than a minute about the consequences of inflation, but he will never mention the cause of it, because he's in the pocket of those who issue paper currency. Of course. How can he say something against them? Inflation is a monetary issue. It's billions and trillions of dollars pumped by the Federal Reserve each day to keep this illusion, this dying economy going. But no one will mention this. They'll blame wars, they'll blame each other, they'll blame political parties and candidates, but no one will point their finger at the moneymakers. At the money changers, whom Jesus drove out of the temple. Remember that story?
And the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem, and found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves, and the changers of money sitting. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables, and said unto them that sold doves,
Take these things hence. Make not my Father's house an house of merchandise.
And his disciples remembered that it was written,
The zeal of thine house hath eaten me up.
Then answered the Jews, and said unto him,
What sign showest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest these things?
The money changers. Every male coming to the temple for Passover was required to pay the half-shekel offering, and it needed to be exchanged into tokens by the money changers. The religious leaders had quite an organized racket going on at the temple in Jerusalem. They created a way to collect money from every pilgrim coming to worship at the temple, and they did it in an inconspicuous manner by bringing in their own bankers or money changers to exchange good currency for temple tokens. The money changers added a 12% fee for their services, which was shared with the religious leaders. This became a hardship, especially for the poor and the needy. It also broke the spirit of worship at the temple and created a place of squabbling over money.
Shame on the goyim! Welke goy get the geld? Kijk me toch daar even van de kinderen. Kijk me geit vol. Aan de komen niet le tooi. Kijk kom. Zie eine man. Met dat geld. Ach, de vrijdag is 8 gebrochen met een schommerig. Mika I love you.
Those money makers who in addition charge interest out of thin air. They make money out of thin air and they also charge interest out of thin air. And you, me and everyone else have to pay for it. And trillions of dollars in debt are not payable. It's not possible to pay it back. Ever. So in a nutshell, the system works like this. Each new dollar created by the Fed has to steal a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of each existing dollar in the world. And now repeat this process millions of times and eventually you devalue your currency to zero. You hyperinflate. You are simply not allowed to grasp the real situation and identify the real enemy. The problem lies with the money supply. And the biggest money supply happened, you know when? During the lockdowns, when everything went down to the drain, when everyone had to stay at home, work from home and shut down their small businesses because of invisible enemy or whatever. When they kept the system afloat by injecting trillions of dollars, when they gave stimulus checks. Those bills that were created during the lockdowns, it takes months and even years to affect us, to catch up with us. The bills that were created in 2019 by the Fed, they didn't hit our pockets in 2020 or 2021. No, it takes time for them to get into circulation of existing pool of money. Now we're feeling the pain, the consequences of those Federal Reserve and government actions. I mean, the dollar has already lost 98% of its purchasing power from its inception, and they want to get the remaining few percent of it. Governments are in a race to the bottom to devalue their currencies so that they could introduce a new system. A system of complete bondage, a system of hell, a system of no privacy whatsoever, so that they could keep the scam going by transitioning into digital trash, where you don't even need to print paper anymore. You can simply create currency on the screen with imaginary digits. And that's total and complete control. A loss of freedom, that's the end goal of the Federal Reserve. You'll own nothing and you will be happy. A complete con job that was created more than a century ago. The current system is coming apart as we speak, and the process of it will only accelerate in the upcoming months. And if you want to learn how the system works, then please continue watching what I'm about to share with you. I absolutely despise and hate this system of bondage with a passion. It only benefits those few percent in power who made this system up. And please, it's very important to understand this process.
If there was one physical subject, one material subject that we should focus on, in my opinion, it is very clear that the head of the snake is the financial system. We can argue till the end of time about who runs the world. Is it the Jesuits? Is it the reptilians? Is it the Illuminati? Is it the Freemasons? We can go on and on and on and on about this. But I don't think it is reasonable to even begin arguing about the mechanism that is used to exert this control. The mechanism is finance. The whole point of finance is to indebt, otherwise to enslave. What is a mortgage? I mean, what does that stand for? It's a death grip. So when you get a mortgage, you have a death grip held over you because you are in debt. You don't even own the house. The bank owns the house that loans you the money to buy the house, unless you're fortunate enough to have all the money to buy it outright. And even then, you can be taxed by the government, and if you fail to keep up with those taxes, the government can then take it from you. The whole system is based on a financial fraud, which effectively takes the power that we have and it gives it to a tiny group of individuals who are running the world through the control of finance. With the infinite supply of money that we have allowed them to take, they have literally an infinite supply of money, and with that money, and from their psychopathic point of view, they have bought everything and everyone who can be bought. So those of us who cannot be bought, because we operate on a level that goes way beyond the material, we are not rewarded for such behavior, we are punished for such behavior. And the most slovenly, disgustingly criminal, pedophilia, corrupt moral individuals, those are the ones that are rewarded in this system, which is upside down. We reward the pedophiles, we reward the corrupt, we reward the liars, we reward the people with no morals at all, and usually we compromise them under this system in terms of maybe a videotape. Maybe Barack Obama is gay. Maybe we have videotape of him having sex with another man, or perhaps some other acts that may be not so popular amongst many of the electorate. Or maybe we have videos of political leaders having sex with little boys or little girls. If I was in charge of the world and I was a psychopath and completely drunk on my own power, you can bet damn sure that's what I would do. I wouldn't allow anyone in a position of power who wasn't completely compromised. When you have an infinite supply of money, you can do this. Take that supply of money away, take that power back, put it in the hands of the people, get rid of fractional reserve banking, which is an obscenity in itself. Listen to the lessons of Jesus Christ. If you're a Christian who got really pissed off when he went to the temple and he saw what the money changers were doing, let's take back control of the issuance of money, and not just on a national level. I'm happy to see in Denmark that you have your own currency. You don't have the euro. But on every country's level, they should be issuing their own currency in a transparent, non-usury based way in which it really, truly benefits the people. And in that way, we can literally free ourselves of the banking debt which is drowning us all, and we can stop scrambling for the crumbs from the table of these filthy rich psychopaths and live in a state of abundance just by changing this one thing. And I'm not just talking about abundance for Western nations who have an artificially inflated value with their currencies. We all in the West are guilty of having that reward while the rest of the world is sucking on it. Every nation in the world can use a sensible financial policy to liberate themselves, to have world-class education, infrastructure, everything that a healthy society would require can be had in the worst, most corrupt African country in any part of the world. We can all have that if we simply change that one thing. John F. Kennedy did that about 6 months before he was taken out. He issued United States notes as opposed to Federal Reserve notes. I can assure you the powers that be knew the power of that act, and they took him right out. So the bottom line is, if we as people understand this very simple principle, just this one thing, change this one thing, we can solve every other problem you can name. I don't care what the problem is. I can bring it back to the financial system and an infinite supply of money for a bunch of psychopaths who are running the world, as opposed to an abundant supply of money for all of us.
The book on your screen was first written in 1994, but it is currently in its 32nd printing. This is the 5th edition, and the author is G. Edward Griffin, and he's joining us here on Book TV on C-SPAN 2 in Las Vegas. Mr. Griffin, who is the creature from Jekyll Island? Or what is the creature?
What is the creature, yeah. I had fun with that title because I thought if anybody saw it in the bookstore, they might think it was a sequel to the Jurassic Park or something like that. The creature from Jekyll Island is the Federal Reserve System. And the reason for the Jekyll Island connection is because one of the most interesting things about the Federal Reserve is that it was created on Jekyll Island. It's a real island. It's off the coast of Georgia. And it was on that island back in 1910 that a small group of men gathered, and it was their mission to draft what became eventually the Federal Reserve Act. And I see you're going to show the pictures there. Yeah, those are the guys. And the funny thing about that piece of history is that the Federal Reserve Bill was being sold to the American people at that time as a piece of legislation that was going to somehow control those big bad bankers. You see. And what they didn't realize is that the big bad bankers that you're looking at right there, those are the epitome of the great power centers of banking. They were the ones that were busy writing the bill that was supposed to control
Who
themselves.
are these 6 gentlemen, Mr. Griffin?
Well, they're representatives.
If you could walk us through them.
Primarily, Senator Aldrich is the only one that wasn't a banker. He was the politician. He was the one that was sort of spearheading the political side of it.
But father-in-law also to John Rockefeller.
John Rockefeller, yeah. He was tied in very closely to the banking fraternity and the industrial complex. A very wealthy guy in his own right. He was probably the most important political figure in the United States, short of the president, who was Woodrow Wilson in those days. But the rest of these guys are all bankers, and they represented the dynasties of J.P. Morgan and William and the Rockefeller dynasty, and they had connections to Kuhn Loeb and Company that were there, and that means they were connected to the Rothschilds in England and France, and Max Warburg was there. I mean, Paul Warburg was there, and he had connection to his brother Max, who was the head of the banking, the Warburg Banking Consortium in Germany and the Netherlands. And so what we have is this was an international group here, really, representing international finance. And if there was anything that was the epitome of the big bad bankers of the world, these were the guys. So what happened there is that they knew that there was going to be some kind of a move to control banking. They knew that Congress was going to pass some kind of a law to regulate banking. And so instead of being stupid about it and just sitting back and saying, oh, I hope they don't do too bad, they decided to take the lead. They said, we'll write the bill. we'll make sure that it's to our liking. And so that's what it's all about. They went to Jekyll Island where nobody knew they were going, where they had a meeting that was in a great deal of secrecy. They denied that they went for many years thereafter, But they actually drafted the Federal Reserve Act on Jekyll Island in 1910, and then the next 3 years it took that much time to promote it and get it through Congress.
So 1910, William Howard Taft was president, and the 6 gentlemen who were there, Nelson Aldrich, Republican whip in the Senate, Henry Davison, senior partner of J.P. Morgan, A. Piatt Andrew, Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, Frank Vanderlip, President of National City Bank of New York, Benjamin Strong of J.P. Morgan, and Paul Warburg, partner representing the Rothschilds and Warburgs in Europe. And you say that in here that they represented essentially 1/4 of the entire wealth of the world.
Of the entire world. An incredible statement. That's not my appraisal, but that was the opinion of the journalists at the time who were writing about these people, not in connection with the Federal Reserve, but they were prominent bankers, and they talked about the Jekyll Island Group, for example, and then these bankers in particular, and the investment houses of Kuhn, Loeb and Company, and so forth. But they said these men represented directly through the power that they held in their own hands, and indirectly through the money that was concentrated in the investment firms, like the insurance companies and the banking companies. Put it all together, they said it was 1/4 of the wealth of the entire world. And that concentration of wealth has only increased since then.
Mr. Griffin, was the Federal Reserve Act at the time it was being debated in Congress, was it a controversial thing? Were newspapers full of articles about it?
Yes, it was. It did receive a lot of publicity at the time, and there was a lot of discussion that somehow some people were aware that the banks had an influence in this legislation. And when Senator Aldrich first released the legislation, it was called the Aldrich Bill, and that was really bad. Warburg said, Nelson, he said, don't do that. He said, people know that you're a Republican and that you're rich and that you're connected with all of the investment houses. Don't call it the Aldrich Bill. And Aldrich apparently had a great deal of ego, and he probably said, well, after all, I'm well respected and so forth. So he did call it the Aldrich Bill. Well, then that's when the controversy started. People said, well, exactly what Warburg said they were going to say. So that's when they pulled the bill back because it had a lot of bad negativity about it. And then they reissued it, almost the same bill, but they got some Democrats, Carter Glass. It was called the Glass Bill. But he was a Democrat, so that was okay, you see. People still, even in those days, had the idea that somehow Democrats were hardworking people, blue collar and dirt under their fingernails, like Ted Kennedy. But so it worked. The point is the ploy worked, and okay, now it was a bill being sponsored by the common man, and that's how they basically.
So, in your view, the bill, the Federal Reserve from the beginning was a ploy.
Oh, absolutely, it was a ploy. It was a brilliant piece of strategy. These people were not stupid. They're great psychopoliticians. They're great strategists. And in fact, while the bill was being debated in Congress, some of these people went before the public. They gave speeches knowing it would be reported in the press, and they were interviewed by journalists, and they said, oh, this bill that they had written on the side, nobody knew it, but they said, this bill is not going to be good for business. It's bad for America. And they actually did that ploy. And knowing full well that the average guy would read that in the newspaper and say, these big bankers don't like the bill. Must be pretty good, These fellows were brilliant, and that's how they sold it.
Well, you asked the question in your book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, what is the Federal Reserve, and what is your answer?
Well, what it is, it's a cartel. It's not a government agency. It has the appearance of it being a government agency, and they went to great lengths to give it that facade. It does have the power of government because Congress voted to give the power of enforcement to it. But in its essence, underneath it, it's a cartel. It's nothing different than a banana cartel or an oil cartel or sugar cartel. It happens to be a banking cartel. They got together, they drew up the rules and regulations for their own industry, to self-regulate their own industry is what cartels do, and then they sent it to Congress, and they took off the label at the top that said banking cartel, and they erased that, and they said Federal Reserve Act. Congress passed it into law, and that's why we think it's a government agency, is because if you don't obey the rules that they set down for their own industry, you go to prison. And so it looks like a government agency. But basically the answer to your question is it's a banking cartel.
When did you get interested in this topic?
Oh, golly. I first became interested in this topic in the middle 1960s. I was producing some rather low-budget documentaries, and I thought, a good documentary would be on inflation. What's the cause of inflation? I wasn't too sure myself what it was, but I knew it had something to do with the manipulation of the money supply. So I started to do some research, and I never did produce the documentary, but that's when I got my interest into it. I had a box full of research, and then anyway, eventually I got the box back out and started to give some talks on it, and it just sort of grew. There was no great milestone along the way. That the more I learned about it, the more I realized that it was a very important topic to the future of our country.
You write in the Creature from Jekyll Island that the FDIC is not insurance. What is it?
Well, this is a hard thing to answer because you have the problem that when you over-insure something, or if you insure something to the point where there's no risk at all, then there's a tendency for the thing you're insuring against to happen. The old jokes about it. You've got the store that's losing money, and so you insure it for $1 million, and by golly, it burned down. It just couldn't help it. Somebody left a match, I guess. Yeah, that's called moral hazard. And when, that's the name the insurance industry gives it. So when you have a government agency guaranteeing that banks cannot fail, and they're going to take taxpayer money, okay, and make the banks whole again, if they go belly up, or if there's a run on the bank or something like that, you are encouraging banks to make risky investments and to make risky loans, because what have they got to lose? They know that they're not going to be allowed to suffer the consequences of their own acts. And secondly, the FDIC isn't really insurance. It doesn't really rate the banks. In other words, the more risky banks don't pay a higher premium than the more conservative banks. They all pay the same rate. So this is another form of moral hazard. Those who are conservative and are doing the best for their stockholders and their investors are making less money, and the reckless banks are out there making reckless loans and everything and making more money. And so the conservative banks say, well, I guess we better be reckless too. And so the whole industry tends to go that way. And that, by the way, is a shorthand way of explaining what's happened to our banking industry in the last, next year the Federal Reserve will be 100 years old. So this has been going on for 100 years.
So, Mr. Griffin, what should be done in your view with the Fed?
There's only one thing to be done with the Fed. If you remember what it really is, it's a cartel. A cartel that has the monopoly power of our nation's money. The Fed needs to be abolished. There's no other way around it. You cannot take the power to create money out of nothing and give it to men and expect that power not to corrupt those men. I don't care whether they're the bankers or politicians. You give that power to anybody, eventually they will be corrupted by it. The Federal Reserve System is a cartel, and I think America needs to abolish it before it abolishes America.
Is that politically possible?
It's not politically possible now because the average person doesn't understand it, and so they wouldn't support a move. But it's becoming more possible with the passage of every month, and certainly every year, as more and more people are waking up to the fact that our banking industry is based upon fraud, and that these bailouts and all these stimulus programs that are being done with this newly created money, this is not helping the people, it's plundering the people. As more and more people come to that awareness, then it becomes more and more politically possible. Right now, I don't think it is, but when I wrote this book some years ago, there was practically zero interest in the topic. And now we've got demonstrations and end the Fed movements and investigating the Fed, audit the Fed movements, and the movement to abolish the Fed is actually growing. I see that on college campuses. Once in a while, I have an occasion to speak before a university group, and you'll see people with placards, end the Fed, end the Fed. Well, this is the new generation coming up, you see. So, again, back to your question, it's not possible now, but the movement is growing, and I think probably in the next probably 8 to 10 years, it probably will happen.
All the central banks of the world create the money of the world, and they do participate in every transaction. Every time somebody buys a package of bubble gum, there's a little bell that rings somewhere in the central bank cash register, and they get a little piece of the action. So yeah, they are in the middle of just about every productive exchange in the world that produces a service or a product, and that's a lot.
But this also the scale, just the scale of what they're receiving in interest payments on something that was created out of nothing,
yes,
would confer an incredible and awesome power on these people.
Well, it's when I was trying to figure out a way of describing that in the early days, I came up with the idea of imagine a river of gold flowing constantly in one direction. A river of gold so wide that you cannot even think across it, much less see across it.
Yes.
And then you're probably getting close to what we're talking about.
Yes.
Because it's global and it's cumulative and it's continuous, and not every transaction is a package of bubble gum. Many of those transactions are humongous purchases and construction projects and so forth that involve hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. And wars, of course, create the necessary destruction that require reconstruction, and that's very much a part of it. You add all of that together, and it is a river of gold. And it comes from the little man in little pieces, and it's aggregated, and the tributaries gather together into the central banks. And as you mentioned, those central banks are controlled by a relatively small number of people. Yeah. So it's further aggregated, and where it winds up, we can only imagine. But I think an important part of that understanding is that these people don't use that river of gold entirely for their own pleasures or aggrandizement or anything. They use most of it, they spend most of it in the acquisition of control and power over the world. They use that money. It's not just profit to them. To them, it's a business expense, so to speak, because the real goal is not just to make more money. They've got all the money they can possibly spend. Yes. The real goal today, I believe, is to control every human being on the planet, and that's where that river of gold is going.
And the scale of the resource they have is beyond certainly any cash flow resource from any industry.
Oh,
really,
well beyond that.
Because it is essentially all human activity is going to make these payments into this control structure.
Mm-hmm. That's it. It's so simple once you understand it, but it's so large and seems so bizarre to the average person that they can't imagine it, or they think it must be imaginary. It can't be, nothing like that. We certainly know about it. If something that big were in the room, we would know about it, right? Yes. How large does the elephant have to be before you can see it? And the answer is it has to be bigger than the room. And then you don't see it.
Yes.
You're in it instead of seeing it.
So is it fair to say that the governments do not control this resource? It's the other way around.
Yes. It didn't start out that way, but that's always, you could predict that's the way it would be, because governments need money, and the only way they can get it is to tax their subjects, which is unpopular. And in today's world, governments must try very hard to be popular governments. Otherwise, they tend to be replaced by opposition forces that can pretend to be popular governments and benevolent governments. So they don't like the tax structure so much, but they love the fiat money structure, devaluation of the purchasing power of the existing national currencies, because that's a hidden tax that goes directly to them, and not one person in 1,000 out there in the street understands how that works. So there's no animosity or anger on the public part because they don't understand that they're being plundered. So it's their favorite method of paying for everything.
Yes.
And they have no limit. No, I think it's a self-evident truth. You can see it. But the question remains, well, why is it that way? I feel that it's because the system that has evolved, the one under which we now live, has been twisted so badly that only those of this temperament are able to climb to the top. If it were a sort of a laissez-faire environment and you acquired success and authority because of your ability to produce goods and services or make life easier and better for people, the people that have those instincts would rise to the top. But the system we have now is basically based on fraud and myth, deception, legalized plunder, control over human beings, just for the sheer power of controlling them. None of those results are the product of proper motivation, and they attract only people who are capable of playing the dirty game to rise to the top.
Is it somehow different or more extreme than it has been at other times in your life?
It's definitely different. Even the change is so drastic in my life. In one single lifetime, I can see it, and certainly somebody who would be reading about it in a history book or something would see that it was quite drastic. And again, I think it's because of the social acceptance of the system itself. What people are convinced is normal or correct or good or bad has been changed through a process that I could only call psychological warfare. And societies have changed. The cultures have changed. The values have changed. The mores are different than when I arrived on this planet. And that's not necessarily to say that everything that was existing at that time was excellent, because that would not be true. But they were certainly at a higher level, I think, of ethics than they are now. Now people rise to success, let's say in the corporate world, for example, not because of their ability to produce goods or services at a higher quality and a lower cost than their competitors, but because they have political influence and they bribe the politicians to pass laws to hinder their competition. So success now is awarded to those who play the dirty game instead of those who play the honorable game. So naturally, who's rising to the top but the dirty game players? So again, it goes back to the system, but that didn't just happen. There were and are a group of people that really want to play the dirty game. It's not just it happened and then they took advantage of it. They do want to change it in that direction and have succeeded in doing so. Yes. Well, again, I think that's it's a self-fulfilling answer that, yeah, it's obvious that this is reaching out to a lot of people, and it's reaching fast, and as it should, because it affects everyone except that very small minority at the top who are going to benefit from all of this. And even those who had great wealth thought they could rise above it because they can buy your way out of almost everything, are realizing, no, they're not exempt either. And so that's causing a rapid awareness and growth in resolve to do something about it. But you touched the real problem when you said, are they becoming aware of the problem, and do they understand the nature of the problem? Those are two different things. Mm-hmm. One of the things I worry most about is that I'm afraid that our opponent, our enemy, let's call him what I think he is, have thought about this a long time ago and have anticipated that there will come a time along the process of their consolidation of power when there'll be waves of pushback, when people will come to this awareness that, hey, we better do something about it. And there'll be this upwelling and this growth in the pushback. And so I put myself in the position of what would I do if I were them, knowing that this was going to happen. And of course, the answer is really clear. It's what the military does when they build strategies for what if. There's nothing that ever happens in the world that the military hasn't already anticipated that, well, what would we do if this happened? I think they have buildings full of strategists who are building scenarios of what you do.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about it at the time. You've already figured it out, maybe even had some practices doing it. So I know for certain in my mind that this upwelling of awareness was anticipated by the opposition. So what would I do if I were sitting around their board table? I would say, well, let's take a look at Plan 7B and pull that out and read it again. Oh, okay, we're going to use that one. And I think that 7B would probably be to, if you can't stop it, then overpower it with some other issue. In other words, let's unleash a world war, or let's have an EMP attack that turns off the electricity. Let's have people fighting and rioting in the streets over something. Let's do something really dramatic. Let's drop an atomic bomb on Cincinnati. And now that'll do it, because everybody will say, oh my gosh, we're in an atomic war. We're not going to worry about property rights. We're worried about surviving now. That's what I would do. And I'm going to throw it out for what it's worth, because our enemy is of that nature. They would do anything to preserve their power and perpetuate it. So if we pretend like we don't know that, we're making a big mistake.
Sure.
Now, the rest of that story is, even though that were not part of the picture, people are becoming aware that this is a threat on their private property, and they're upset. But do they understand why they're after their private property? Is it just because they want the property and it's selfish? Or is there an ideological reason? And of course, there's an ideological reason as well.
Yeah.
And what I'm not seeing, and I think it's one of my responsibilities, is to help people realize that there's something else even bigger that encompasses that. And that's this ideology of collectivism, which is at the root of everything. If you peel back the onion layers enough, you see, oh, it's this ideology called collectivism. The idea that the group is more important than the individual, and that the individual must be sacrificed, if necessary, for the greater good of the greater number. That's the core of it. And all of these atrocities that are being committed are done on the basis of that justification. It's for the greater good. Or you've got to take that vaccine because it's not for you, but for your grandmother, or something like that. The greater good of society. It's always that. We'll have this war because if we don't have the war, well, it might be even worse. And on and on and on. So I want people to understand that the enemy really is not just this guy that's trying to take your property rights because he's a dirty son of a gun, and get rid of him and replace him with somebody you can trust. Yeah. No, you got to look at their deeper motives. Are these collectivists? Are these ideologically motivated people? And they are. In every case that I've had a chance to look at the movers and shakers of this opposition that we're talking about,
yes,
they believe intensely in the principles of collectivism, and that is what motivates them.
And to be clear, these are the people controlling the central banks.
They are the yeah.
Yeah.
And they're also the people who created that ideology in the first place.
Yes, so they are not what we would really think of as capitalists.
No, they're the opposite.
Yes.
No, they're not capitalists. They may be very rich, but that's not
Yes.
the definition of capitalism.
Yes.
The richest people in the world are the despots.
So coming back to what you've just said, that this is rushing towards something now. And the people behind this we seem to be going into an intensifying hybrid war globally. And people would say, well, when is that beginning? Well, you're in it already. You have hundreds of thousands of innocent people that have been killed in Ukraine at this point, that have been trapped in the middle of this. You have the horrible destruction in Gaza going on presently. This is on the heels of years of the bizarre things that happened during COVID, and it may be a long time before we understand what all the objectives were of that opening stage.
But we already see the casualties.
So we're in it big time, and so there's an urgency to understand what is behind it, and that it is going to get worse. And
also, the other thing I mentioned and didn't fully develop is the fact that knowing that there would be a pushback, another part of the strategy of our opponent would be to provide leadership for the pushback. Actors, controlled opposition. They know that we will be looking for people to rise up and lead against them. So they don't wait around and say, let's see, I wonder who they're going to choose. They put their own man or woman out there. And he says all the right things. He says, follow me, we'll get rid of these dirty bankers, we'll solve this problem. And people say, well, thank God, you know, and they'll follow them. But they're programmed to be defeated. Now, that's something people don't like to think about. Oh, they wouldn't do that, would they? Well, of course they would. This is war. They would do that in a heartbeat. They do that in the football field with the Statue of Liberty play. Why wouldn't they do it in warfare, for God's sake?
Yes.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
The strike coming as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announcing the government needs new energy. Several high-profile ministers have resigned, like Alexander Kamyshin, instrumental in the country's successful drone campaign against Russia, and Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, who rallied Western support and weapons, including from Canada.
Zelensky is clearly unhappy with what he has received from the West, and that this team is being swapped out.
Analysts say it's part of Zelensky's push to receive NATO long-range missiles to attack Russia and retain control.
There's just a lot of dissent in Ukraine right now about how the war is being conducted.
Ukraine's Kursk offensive boosted morale, but failed to draw Russian invaders away from Donetsk, where they keep gaining ground.
Blinken, go home. Go home as soon as possible. Get lost. Get lost. We don't want you here. We don't want Polish people paying and dying for your wars. Thank you very much.
Смотри, идет сюда. Офигеть, сейчас. эту волну. Просто жесть. А как светло было, вообще как.
Противник несет очень большие потери. Очень большие потери. И в живой силе, и в технике. Сейчас не буду и перечислять. Министерство обороны дает эти данные. Я считаю их объективными, потому что они подтверждаются сразу из нескольких источников. И это чревато, с одной стороны, разрушением фронта на наиболее важных направлениях, а потери могут привести просто к утрате боеспособности всех вооруженных сил, чего мы и добиваемся.
There is an attempt to substitute concepts, because we are not talking about allowing or forbidding the Kiev regime to strike our territory. It already does that with the help of drones and other means. But when we are talking about the use of precision weapons, long-range Western-made weapons, it is a completely different story. The fact is that I have already mentioned this, and any experts will confirm it, both in our country and in the West. The Ukrainian army is incapable of striking with modern Western-made long-range precision systems. It can only do that by using intelligence from satellites, which Ukraine does not have. They get the data only from EU satellites, or from the United States. In general, from NATO satellites. That's the first thing. The second and very important thing, maybe the key one, is that the flight missions in these missile systems can, in fact, be inputted only by NATO military personnel. Ukrainian servicemen cannot do this. So it's not a question of allowing the Ukrainian regime to strike Russia with these weapons or not. It is a question of deciding whether or not a NATO country could be directly involved in a military conflict. If this decision is made, it will mean nothing else but the direct participation of NATO countries, the United States, European countries in the war in Ukraine. This is their direct participation. And this already, of course, significantly changes the very essence, the very nature of the conflict. It will mean that NATO countries, the United States, European countries, are at war with Russia. And if that is the case, then having in mind the change in the very essence of this conflict, we will take appropriate decisions based on the threats that will be presented to us.
Vladimir Putin says Russia will be at war with NATO if Ukraine uses long-range missiles deep into Russia. How far into Russia do you think Ukraine should be able to strike?
Vladimir Putin is striking regularly in the heart of Ukraine. He's sending missiles and bombs at hospitals, at daycare centers, at families and communities across Ukraine, and it was his choice to invade a neighboring sovereign nation. His choice to start this conflict, and it could be his choice to end it tomorrow. All he has to do is pull back his troops into Russian territory. But he won't do that. He is not just trying to remove any choice that Ukrainians have around where they want their future to go, remove their independence, remove their sovereignty. He's trying to deeply destabilize the international rules-based order that protects us all, not just in every democracy around the world, but in all countries around the world. Any country with a neighbor with a slightly larger army should be worried if it suddenly becomes allowed to invade and redraw lines on the map. And that's why Canada and others are unequivocal that Ukraine must win this war against Russia. And we will continue to be there to support Ukraine. And yes, Canada fully supports Ukraine using long-range weaponry to prevent and interdict Russia's continued ability to degrade Ukrainian civilian infrastructure and mostly to kill innocent civilians in their unjust war.
This is a terror alert.
What do you mean, really?
Yeah. Did I send it to you, Jamie? I didn't, right?
Where?
The subs are outside of Miami or something, right?
Gaza terror alert.
Well, the subs are outside of Miami. That's real. But then there's another thing.
Cuban subs?
Russian subs? Is that what that is?
Yes. Yeah, there's a Russian nuclear sub outside of Miami.
That's troubling.
Yeah, like outside of Cuba. So it's like 25 miles from Miami. There's a Russian sub. Yeah. CIA chief warns of possible terror attack. U.S. faces serious threat of terror attack. Fun. Great. Guys, just in time for the election. This season is the best. This season has me riveted. I don't understand who's writing this. How are they killing off good guys? Like, what is going on? This season of The World is amazing. Boys, if a terrorist attack goes down, you know you're going to want to be here.
I'm going to your house.
I'm gonna be your house.
We're not
That's
gonna let
where I
you in,
wanna be.
dude. If I get in before you, I'm not gonna let you in.
What? There's
I'm
so
gonna
much
go,
room and food.
No, I'm gonna
We
go.
need
"Oh,
to
you
get a
can't come in."
ranch. We need to get a ranch before everything goes sideways.
You'll need me to offer as a sacrifice. Like, guys, I got one for you.
Yeah.
Leave us alone. We'll get you
You
one.
need a
want me
ranch
there.
with a well and a bunch of animals. And you need a bunch of chickens. You need food and you need water. Chickens will always give you food.
Chickens will keep. Yeah.
Chickens are easy. You get 1 egg almost every day from a chicken.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and if you have a dozen chickens, you have a dozen eggs a day, or at least 8.
Protein,
at least 8 or 10.
And then
so then you have like that's food, and then all the other food you get is a bonus, and you need water. And if things go sideways, that's real.
You got a bunker?
I have plans.
I knew it. I knew
I
it.
have some plans.
I got a feeling you're not gonna let me in.
I will let you in. 100%.
You promise?
Yeah, all you guys can come in.
Whoa!
Yeah, everybody can come in.
Nice.
I just wonder
Thought of it.
if you're preparing too late. Like if she goes down tomorrow, it's too late.
Well, yeah, but you're.
But
But what about those guys who built those bunkers in the '60s and then just like
you don't want a bunker. This is why. Because if it goes that bad, you don't want to be alive.
You don't want to survive that.
You don't. If a nuclear war happens, you don't want to be alive. If you get
They
hit,
thought they'd wait it out 5 years.
you're gonna come out to hell.
Yeah.
You're gonna come out to hell, and the people that are gonna be alive are gonna be so dangerous.
Yeah, you get out there like, hey guys, I survived. Like, new slaves.
They're gonna eat.
Oh, we're gonna rape you and eat you.
They're gonna eat you.
Yeah.
They will 100% eat you.
You ever see The Road?
Yes.
It's the bleakest version of that.
Brutal.
But everybody knows that that's probably what would happen, at least in some parts of the world.
That's why it's good. There's a nuclear submarine off the coast of Miami. you know?
There's not just one. There's another boat, another Soviet boat that's
This
out
is
there
great.
too. Yeah.
Why don't we de-escalate?
It'd be nice.
Would be a real good idea. Did you see Biden signed some 10-year deal to keep supporting Ukraine for the next 10 years?
I did see that.
What are we doing?
That's
10
so
years?
crazy.
It's a lot of money.
But it's also, the whole thing is so crazy. It's like,
All
what-
because his son worked there?
Well, there's probably a lot of factors.
That's the thing, right?
Charisma.
Yeah.
But that he's in court now.
But there's a
Gun
lot of other
charge.
factors with like all the different.
He'll be all right. I see a pardon coming.
Yeah, I see a pardon coming with that guy.
But we got 2 politician guys in court. It's a wild time.
There's just so many factors that are dangerous right now, like Palestine, Ukraine. There's so many different places in the world where like things could pop off and go real bad at any moment. And like there's a steady clip of people dying.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
a steady
Yeah.
clip of people dying in Ukraine. Steady clip. And at a certain point in time, if it gets to like how many people has Ukraine lost? Let's guess. How many soldiers?
No one will tell us.
What is the estimate of losses in Ukraine?
A lot of people went back. Athletes and stuff went back to fight. And a lot of them
Really?
are dead.
That's
A lot of
pretty
them are dead.
A
badass.
lot of like
Klitschko,
Ukrainians fighting.
Klitschko and
What?
Lomachenko.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, my people are Irish, so I feel a kinship with my people,
Yeah.
100%.
I'm at Long Island.
On Long Island, I feel a kinship with criminals and people that do prescription drugs.
Yeah,
Yes.
contractors.
No, but I feel the people that you grew up around are the people that you love.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. So I just wanted to show everybody what they were.
And what are they?
They're just like everybody else. Just
That's
one step
not
off.
true.
They're better. We value education.
Yeah.
We're not born intelligent. It might be genetic. Let's be honest. There's not gonna be any studies on it. But we are smarter.
Aren't the IQs of Ashkenazi Jews very high?
Extremely high. I mean, is that any surprise?
No.
Bro, Woody Allen wrote his own movies. A lot of these guys just take on someone else's project. You think Michael Bay even knows how to write? No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He just does special effects. Yeah, we're extremely intelligent. We value education. We stick to ourselves. We fucking, raise our kids right.
When you hear Kanye throw out all these things, it's collusion, the people they're working together against the others. Do you understand at all where he comes from?
Yeah, we help ourselves. We all went to Jewish dentists and stuff.
Right.
It's just support. This is what fucking Killer Mike says about black people.
Right.
How come you don't support each other's business? So we're like, yeah, we know. We figured it out.
There seems to be a tough relationship between Jewish music executives and black performers.
Yeah, here's why. We designed everything they do. That do-rag that 50 Cent had, that's Jew designed.
Really?
We choose all that shit. They run it by us, and then we chose we do market research, and we just figure out what's the best. Milli Vanilli, it was all Jews who were singing this stuff.
Right.
We've just like planned it, but we know we're not cool looking. And also, yeah, we kill it in the management industry. You know why? Why comedy managers and agents are Jews? Why because you need to have someone funneling you money the first 3 years when you're not making any money.
Right.
Who else could afford that? Only rich.
Right.
No.
Well, that's
follow,
good.
Follow your dream.
These are all good things.
Good things.
If you gave me a button to just erase Gaza, every single living being in Gaza would no longer be living tomorrow, I would press it in a second. That's just, I think most Israelis
If
probably
that's the
agree.
choice, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, even if it's not like right now.
Yeah, no.
I would press it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and same with the territories.
Give me that button and press it right now.
There you go.
And I think most Israelis would.
Yeah. Most Jewish
They wouldn't.
Israelis.
They wouldn't post. They wouldn't talk about it like I am.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't post. They wouldn't say I pressed it, but they would press it. Right? Like if they were in a
Yeah.
closet alone, they wouldn't even hesitate.
Mm-hmm.
Someone came to them and said, "No one will know. You press this, all the Palestinians are gone." You'd be like, "Fucking hey, is there another one?"
I took to the streets of Borough Park to ask residents there a simple question.
Do you want Trump or Harris to win?
Trump.
Why Trump?
Because he would do much better in the office than Harris.
How would he stop the wars, do you think, in Israel and Ukraine? What do you think he would do?
Send in his troops.
Send in American troops?
Yeah.
So do you want Trump, when he becomes in office, to send American troops into Gaza?
Yeah.
You want that? Okay. And how do you see this war ending in Gaza?
If Trump is in office, it will end smoothly.
Are you voting for Trump or Harris?
Trump 2024, 2030, 2040, all year round, all life.
Why Trump?
Not because he was very good. He was good. He does what he says. He's a real leader.
In what way is he a real leader besides doing what he says? Is there something about his policies that you like?
Look, he's a little crazy, but he's good for the country. He's good for the world. He's good for everybody.
Donald Trump.
Why Trump?
Trump is a good, strong president for America.
Why do you think that?
There's a border with Mexico.
Okay.
That's a good thing. The immigrants is a big problem. Then Israel, it's a war in Israel. We need to stop it. Trump is in Ukraine, the same thing. Trump is a strong guy. He's gonna stop it.
Do you want Trump or Harris to win?
Trump.
Why Trump?
He's smart.
Well, why? What makes him smart? I mean, what gives him that credibility you've given him now that he's smart?
He understands to every policy. He's strong, and he's not like a flip-flop person.
He's not a flip-flop person?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
I can't stress how difficult it was to get some of these interviews. In a few of them, I actually had to stop the video to do a prayer in exchange for a minute-long interview.
Are you for Trump or Harris?
Former President Donald Trump.
Why Trump?
Trump understands the people better. He understands the needs of our people in detail and our nation at whole.
Trump has said many times that he's going to stop the war in Israel, he's going to stop the war in Ukraine. Do you believe that he will do that?
It's not up to him.
Not up to him. Why is it not up to him? Tell me.
The war is the predominant war that's written all up in the Torah about, and until Mashiach's day, it won't settle. How it'll play itself out, only Hashem could play it out.
Do you want Trump or Harris to win?
Trump.
Why Trump?
Trump, потому что евреям помогает хорошо.
Why is he good?
Because he helped a lot of Jews.
How is he helping Jews?
He did in Israel, Jerusalem.
What did he do in Jerusalem?
Embassy. I always said embassy.
Does whoever the president is, does it change your life here?
Could be changed. Yeah.
In what way?
Good way.
And if I don't win this election, Israel, with Comrade Kamala Harris at the helm of the United States, is doomed. Israel is doomed. That's a tough statement. Israel will be gone. 1 year, 2 years, Israel will no longer exist. I better win, or you're going to have problems like we've never had. We may have no country left. It may be our last election. You want to know the truth? People have said that. This may be our last election. You got to get out and vote. This could be our last election.
Le Mashiach viendra que quand Édom, l'Europe, la chrétienté sera totalement tombée. Donc je vous pose la question, c'est une bonne nouvelle que l'islam envahisse l'Europe? C'est une excellente nouvelle, ça annonce la venue de Mashiach. Excellente nouvelle. Vous allez le payer très cher, les Européens. Mais à un point, vous n'avez même pas notion de quoi on parle. Et vous n'aurez pas où fuir. Parce que tout le mal que vous avez fait à Israël, vous le paierez au centuple. Quand l'Italie disparaîtra, quand Édom, c'est pour ça que le QG de la chrétienté qui vient de Esav se trouve là-bas, quand cet endroit-là disparaîtra, et c'est ce que veut faire l'islam, il s'occupe. L'islam, c'est le balai d'Israël, sachez-le.
It's the end of days. You're going to need the iron of Esav, which represents Edom, which is the West, Europe, and the Americas, to get intermixed with Ishmael, which is basically Arabs and Muslims. How in the world was this ever going to happen if not for this refugee crisis? At the end of days, you're going to have this intermixing between Esav, Edom, which is the West, and the East, which is the Muslims and the Arabs, making this through this influx into the world. And they're going to have children, you know, I don't want to say by the dozens, but they're going to have a far larger birth rate than the indigenous people there, and they're going to sort of conquer by number. And there are many different sources for this. One of them in Yehezkel, chapter 14, and many other sources as far as this is concerned, where it's mentioned very, very vividly what will happen to the Jews and what will happen to Yerushalayim and what will happen to the world at that time, where there will be many, many people killed and so on and so forth. So the idea of having these refugees come into Europe, it's no longer a matter of whether it's right or wrong. It's just simply a fulfillment of what it was meant to be all along. This is the fulfillment of, the Hazal and the prophecies. This has to happen, and this is just another sign that we are nearing, the completion of this tikkun of the entire world.
That there's a mitzvah and a command to wipe out from among all the descendants of Esav, descendants of Amalek, male and female, young and old. And that is why Amalek is so terrible, and it has to be totally uprooted. Therefore, God tells us we should erase their memory, and we should eradicate them from the face of the earth. Who is Amalek? Amalek comes from Esav. Esav was a brother to Jacob.
Esav, who in modern day terms is really basically, certainly one of them is America. Esav became Edom, which is a nation. Edom became Rome. Instead of it being Rome, it became Christianity. Christianity, of course, ultimately became Western civilization. So Esav today is really Western civilization.
But the new Rome, the United States. But the new Rome.
Esav is Europe. The United States.
The throne of God is incomplete until we destroy Amalek.
Any nation that has that religion can be considered Esav.
The audacity, the chutzpah to destroy Amalek and to cut off the offsprings of the nation of Amalek.
For centuries in Europe, stereotypes of Jews were that they were weak, pale, and frail, and the Zionist movement came to see it this way too, widely criticizing the weak, old Jew. In 1898, at the Second Zionist Congress in Switzerland, the co-founder of the Congress, Max Nordau, called for a new Judaism, a muscular Judaism, and invented the idea of the new Jew. This Jew would be rugged, muscular, strong, and tanned, and would have the mental and physical strength to realize the goals of Zionism and colonize Palestine.
The men who came out to found this colony had never handled a plow, but they were possessed by three ideals: land, liberty, and labor.
It is these new Jews that created the Zionist militias that planned and orchestrated the Nakba, the mass-scale killing and displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, ending with the creation of Israel. And those same militias would become the Israeli army, the violent occupying force overseeing the colonization of Palestine today. And it's through this army that the visual of the new Jew lives on. But then with time, this visual became the only visual of Israel. This was a problem. In the early 2000s, surveys in the US were showing that Israel had a big PR problem with men aged 18 to 35 who just saw Israel as a conflict zone and weren't interested. So another rebrand was due, and the solution this time was bikinis. In 2007, the Foreign Ministry and the Ministry of Tourism arranged for a photo spread in Maxim magazine, one of the most popular men's lifestyle magazines at the time. The brains behind this initiative at the Israeli consulate in New York said the models were, quote, a Trojan horse to present Israel as a modern country with nice beaches and pretty women. This video is from the official Israel in New York YouTube channel.
So you should come to Israel. We have a beautiful country, great food, great culture. Come to Israel. Beautiful girls as well. See you at the party.
This strategy, also called bikini diplomacy, has been seen all over since, with Israel constantly selling the image of a liberal, free country where it's always summer, where the days are full of beaches, bikinis, and chiseled bodies, and the nights are spent in an incredible nightlife scene open to anyone and everyone. But that was in a time before social media, where only the powerful had access to a platform. Times have changed, and so the sexy offensive has had to adapt. All over TikTok and Instagram, you can find videos of Israeli soldiers posting thirst traps or dancing videos. Some of them act independently, while others are part of a concerted effort putting attractive women in the occupation forces in the public eye. Like the women at Alpha Gun Angels, a gun modeling and social media marketing agency who sell being a colonial foot soldier as a sexy lifestyle.
But listen, I've been in the army, I'm Israeli, I'm tough.
Thirst traps aren't only reserved for women, but for weapons as well. And beyond selling sex, they're selling colonial occupation as fun, relatable, and empowering. They love gay pride content, girl boss content, and jumping on TikTok trends. Whereas the goal before might have been to rebrand and repackage Israel, the goal now is to distract and whitewash. So bikinis were traded in for military uniforms. Fine, military occupation is a part of the reality, but it's not what you think. It's empowering and fun and sexy. Do you really think people this fun, young, and free would have it in them to commit war crimes? The public perception of Israel is essential to its survival, but so is something else, that there are enough settlers there to keep up the colonizing. That brings us to the final reason Israel uses sex to sell Zionism. So Jewish Zionists have more kids with other Jewish Zionists. Have you ever heard of Birthright? It's an all-expenses paid trip to Israel that young Jews across the world are eligible for, as long as they're between 18 and 26.
Thousands of Birthright Israel participants filling the seashore with endless smiles, scholars, accents, and tent bodies.
I didn't really have a connection to the homeland, and I came here, and just everybody's so great, and I'm just like overcome with like connection.
It's like you're high on Zionism.
I am really high right now.
The trip is sold as a journey home for young Jews to connect with Israel on an emotional and adventurous 10-day itinerary where they're accompanied by Israeli soldiers. That's not a coincidence. In the early days of Birthright, the billionaire co-founder Charles Bronfman said, quote, he was bothered that the kids on those early trips weren't bonding with their Israeli peers. His answer was developing the mifgash, the encounter, between Jewish Israeli teens and their diaspora counterparts. These encounters move very fast to what we call hormonal mifgashim. Things happen.
Countless romances from the trips have blossomed into serious relationships and even marriages.
And it looks like these boys and girls like each other a lot. I mean, you might have a lot of Jewish babies coming out of this trip eventually, a lot of marriages, a lot of relationships. Is that part of it?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be eventually, it can be tonight.
It's not a coincidence that intimacy is a part of the trip. Participants spend the whole trip with Israeli soldiers intentionally chosen to be attractive. They're taken out for nights of drinking and dancing, and some even spend a night in a fake Bedouin tent, quote, where participants sleep crowded together, a setup conducive to first kisses.
I remember even on the trip that I attended, there were two Israeli soldiers who clearly were into each other. Like they very much had a vibe. And someone made a joke on the trip saying, you have to save yourselves for the Americans, basically clarifying that they were there to seduce us.
So why is coupling so encouraged on these trips? Well, the originator of the idea for Birthright said one of his main goals was to, quote, create a situation whereby spouses are available, because at the time, intermarriage between Jews and non-Jews was at a high, which isn't great when you're trying to build an ethnocracy. To maintain a demographic majority over Palestinians, Israel needs Jews to make more Jews. So what better way to encourage reproduction and immigration than through a coming-of-age, euphoric, emotional, and adventurous trip? The reality of Israel's nation-building story is violence, displacement, dispossession, colonization, and settlement. That's not a great brand. In order to get settlers invested in the vision and try to secure the future, sex is a great tool. Beauty and aesthetics and fun are great marketing tactics, and they have tangible outcomes, like more babies. More babies means more people to get conscripted to the occupation forces and maintain the oppressive military infrastructure necessary for Israel to exist. And what better way to convince people to at least look the other way, and at most participate, than by making it sexy?
Very important verse here coming up. Romans 9 verse 6. Not as though the word of God hath taken none effect, for they are not all Israel which are of Israel. Just because people live in Israel doesn't mean that they're Jews. They're not all of Israel. Who is Israel? Israel is Jacob. Back in the Old Testament, you study it. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob is also called Israel by God. All right? So they're not all Israel, which are of Israel. Okay? Neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Was Ishmael, that he had through Abraham and Hagar, they had the son Ishmael? Is Ishmael counted to be of the promise? No. But he's the son of Abraham. He's not part of the promise. Verse 8. That is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. For this is the word of promise, at this time will I come, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even by our father Isaac, for the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God, according to election, might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. It was said unto her, the elder shall serve the younger. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. What do you have? Well, you have two brothers there. But if you understand the symbology, the spiritual symbology there, Jacob is pure. Esau is mingled. Go back and study the lives of them. Esau, when he saw that it displeased his parents, that he was marrying daughters that were basically of Ishmael, he went out and he did it more. The daughters of Heth, the Bible talks about. He went out and he saw it was upsetting to his parents. And so he went out and he did it more. And what else did Esau do? He despised his birthright. See, Jews are the children of promise. They are promised land, the land of Israel. But there are those that go out and they mingle themselves and they mix with other races for political or financial gain. They try to do that to, build their own kingdom without Jesus Christ. And as a result, they become like Esau. Jacob have I loved and Esau have I hated. And if you study it, there were Jews, mingled papal Juden, Jews that served the Pope, in other words, in the Nazi movement. Some of the higher up guys in the Nazi movement were mingled papal Juden. But they were persecuting Jews. Were they all real Jews? Some were, I believe, but a lot weren't. Let me show you. Revelation chapter 2. What you have to be careful of is these people that come out and they say, there are no Jews, there's no such thing as a Jew, the church has replaced Israel. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. I have the studies to prove it. Don't be lazy. Go look at my studies on replacement theology. I've disproved all of that stuff. Don't waste your time in the comments. You need to study this more. I have studied it. Okay, you haven't studied it if you believe in replacement theology. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. I know thy works in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. They say that they are Jews, but they're not. It doesn't say they are Jews, but because they didn't accept Jesus and they're over there and the Rothschilds founded Israel, therefore they're not real Jews because they are real Jews, but they're no screwball. That's not how it works. There are people that are in Israel that are not of Israel. They're not descended from Jacob. They're mingled. That's why the Bible calls them miry clay. Miry clay mixed with iron. And for a long time, I was espousing some of the dumb theories out there. Well, the fifth kingdom is iron and miry clay mixed together. So it's going to be sort of hybrid angel people thing. That's not what the Bible teaches. The iron is obviously a reference to Rome, the Roman Catholic system. The miry clay, if you look it up, the only other reference to miry clay in your King James Bible is to Israel. Okay? It's talking about the mingling of Roman and the papal Juden, the Jews' popes. That's what it's talking about. I've done the studies to prove it. Well, I don't agree. Did you watch my studies? I don't have time to. Okay. He that answereth the matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. May the Lord rebuke you out there. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. There are fake Jews. Can we establish that? Yes. But if there are fake Jews, by default, there would be real Jews. Otherwise, there's no point in the time of Jacob's trouble. There's going to be all this stuff happening over there in Jerusalem. There's going to be a false Messiah that shows up, this Antichrist guy and whatever else. Who's he coming for? The two witnesses come back and they're there prophesying in the streets and doing signs and wonders. Moses and Elijah, the two witnesses there, which I've proved in other studies. Okay, again, don't give me any hassle about that. Shut up in the comments. You don't know what you're talking about. I proved it. Okay? But what's the point if there are no real Jews? God's going to bring in a new covenant and give it to who? Fake Jews? Oh, that's right. White Europeans that came through Europe and then they're the true Jews or whatever. You're stupid if you believe that. You're stupid. There's no nice way for me to put it. I'm sorry. It's dumb. I've debunked it years and years ago. Okay? Well, no, it's actually the black Africans. The black Africans are the true Jews. Okay, they get over to Israel. It's so simple. You're the real Jews. Okay, it's your land over there. Go take it. They're just Illuminati people over there. They're Khazars. They're Ashkenazi. They're Sephardic. They're this, they're that. Whatever. Okay, all right. Then God will protect you as you go take the land for yourself. Go get it. Coward. I mean, if I believed I was a real Jew, I'd go over to Israel. It's a land of promise. I'd go over there and say, hey, you people over here, you usurpers, you synagogue of Satan, get out. But you see, I'm not a Jew. I'm a Christian. Romans chapter 11, verses 1 through 5. I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. God hath not cast away his people, which he foreknew. Watch ye not what the Scripture saith of Elias, how he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying, Lord, they have killed thy prophets and digged down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. But what saith the answer of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. Even so then at this present time also there is a remnant according to the election of grace. There's a remnant. There are Jews that are saved. Okay? And there will be a remnant that gets saved out of the time of Jacob's trouble. And what you think about that is irrelevant. All right, now let's go back to Ezekiel chapter 36. So we have established so far, if you've been following along in the Scriptures, we have established the fact that they are not all Israel which are of Israel. If just because somebody says I'm a Jew doesn't mean that they're a Jew. There's people that are part of the synagogue of Satan. You have Esau, which God hates. Who is Esau? Esau is someone who mingled his seed. He forsook his birthright. He despised his birthright. Okay? The Jews, don't intermarry with other people. Stay pure to your kindred. Okay? That's what you're supposed to do. Why? Because there is a promise there to the physical seed. You breed that out through marrying all kinds of other people to try to get into money, things, and whatever else. You're no longer relying on the Lord. You're relying on your own connections and things, and you're forsaking that inheritance that's there. You are Esau in God's sight. Okay? Esau is not white men or something. Okay? Esau was a man there, Jacob's brother, and he could have had some great inheritance. But he forsook it to serve his own belly. Like it says about over in the book of James. James written to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. See, there's a lot more than I can just cover here in one study. It takes years to study the scriptures and really search the scriptures and get grounded in the scriptures. But you just want to come along with your little YouTube thing and you know, hey, I watched a 5-minute video and I'm convinced. I understand C.I. Scofield was an agent of the Vatican, or excuse me, of the Zionists, and the Rothschilds financed him, and I just saw this, and you know, we're the true Jews. There are no real Jews. All the Jews over in Israel, they're all fake servants of Satan. They all just do this and that. You're stupid. You are very ignorant. Okay? Well, then you're defending the Jews. Not at all. I judge the Jews. Okay? I'm supposed to raise up my voice like a trumpet and show the people of Israel their sin and spare not. And I'm going to be doing a lot more of that in the future, because we're heading towards the time of Jacob's trouble. So what better group for me to kick than Jacob? Okay? The people of Israel. In other words, Jacob is Israel. Get them ready for that judgment that's coming. Ezekiel 36, verse 16, down through verse 24. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, when the house of Israel dwelt in their own land, they defiled it by their own way and by their doings. Their way was before me as the uncleanness of a removed woman. Wherefore I poured my fury upon them for the blood that they had shed upon the land, and for their idols wherewith they had polluted it. Is there any blood being shed right now in Israel? Particularly in Gaza? Yeah. And you know, that's their land. I believe that it's the Jews' land there in Gaza. But why are they kicking the Palestinians out? Why? Because they want to make resorts there. They want to make more money. Okay? Not a good thing. Not a righteous thing that they're doing. Oh, but Hamas attacked and whatever else back there October 7th, you know, last year or whatever, almost a year ago. They attacked. They have no choice. They have to get rid of the Hamas terrorists and whatever. Okay, that was called a false flag operation. The Israeli military stood down. The IDF stood down and let them come in, do some bad things and whatever else as a pretext for war. Okay, study the whole, art of war thing and whatever else. That's what you do. Okay, this is an age-old tactic. Let the enemy come in. You have a pretext to go to war, to fight, to take their land from them and whatever else, take their resources. That's all that's going on. All right? But they shed blood upon their land. Verse 19, and I scattered them among the heathen, and they were dispersed through the countries according to their way and according to their doings. I judged them. God kicks them out of the land. They're there when God comes down, manifest in the flesh as Jesus Christ. And he's there and he says, you know, John the Baptist, behold the King of the Jews. Here he is. He's the King. You know, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. The King's here. God manifest in the flesh. And what do they say? Oh, isn't this the carpenter's son? Oh, this guy? Oh, not him. Oh, yeah, he's raising people from the dead and he's restoring, you know, eyesight to the blind and causing the maimed to be whole and everything, but I don't know. We would see a sign from thee. And Jesus is saying, you know, there shall no sign be given to you. You're an adulterous and evil generation. I'm not giving you any more signs than what you've already seen. Pretty sick. Verse 20, and when they entered into the heathen, whither they went, they profaned my holy name when they said to them, these are the people of the Lord and are gone forth out of his land. Okay? Jews coming into the different nations, when they're dispersed, they're scattered out throughout the different nations, what did they do? Did they bring righteous standards with them? Did they bring the name of Jehovah God into the nation and show a very righteous standard? No. They went in there and they used usury and all kinds of other things, corrupted the culture, corrupted the morality of the people, did all kinds of evil things, intermarried with the people, giving up their inheritance like Esau did. Terrible, absolutely terrible. That's why the wrath of God is coming upon them. But I had pity for mine holy name, which the house of Israel had profaned among the heathen, whither they went. It's kind of funny. The Lord has pity for his holy name. And you get all these dumb Jews today, these pagans, and they're going around saying, Hashem this, Hashem that. The name, the name. No, his name's Jehovah. It's plainly spelled out in the Old Testament, and Jesus Christ in the New Testament. But they'll use the name Jesus Christ as profanity, but they don't call upon the name of Jesus Christ, the Lord Jesus Christ. I mean, if you're not getting this stuff, please get saved, okay? The tie-ins here are so amazing, you should just be saying, wow, the Word of God is amazing. I don't get how you're tying it all together. Well, then you're lost. I don't know how else to say it to you. All right? Verse 22, Therefore say unto the house of Israel, Thus saith the Lord God, I do not this for your sakes, O house of Israel, but for mine holy name's sake, which ye have profaned among the heathen, whither ye went. And I will sanctify my great name, which was profaned among the heathen, which ye have profaned in the midst of them, and the heathen shall know that I am the Lord, saith the Lord God, when I shall be sanctified in you before their eyes. And I will take you from among the heathen and gather you out of all countries and will bring you into your own land. What a bummer that's going to be for these mingled papal Juden, the Jews of the Pope. Can you imagine that? They're here in America right now. We're going to bring in the FedNow program. We're going to have central bank digital currencies. We're going to have smart cities. We're going to have our boy Elon Musk, and he's going to make smart cars. We're going to have smart cities, 6G technology. Everything's going to be just so. It's going to be great. And all of a sudden, they're going to start losing war after war after war, and the economy is going to crash, and the society is going to break down, and all these other things will happen, and they'll say, what do we do now? Go back to Israel, the land of promise. The Lord's going to tie things up, like the scriptures say. You want to see the truth? You'll see it.
Donald Trump calling for the U.S. to be the Bitcoin superpower under his leadership. The Republican making those remarks in Nashville, telling the crowd he would embrace cryptocurrency if elected for a second term. And Trump getting backlash over remarks he made last night, saying if you vote for him now, you won't have to vote again in 4 years. Democratic lawmakers implying he would end elections if he wins a second term.
If crypto is going to define the future, I want to be mined, minted, and made in the USA. It's going to be. It's not going to be made anywhere else. And if Bitcoin is going to the moon, as we say, it's going to the moon, I want America to be the nation that leads the way. And that's what's going to happen. No, you're going to be very happy with me. Bitcoin is not threatening the dollar. The behavior of the current U.S. government is really threatening the dollar. I will fire.
So I want to talk about security. And security, I think, is something very germane, very central to every aspect of the blockchain and of Bitcoin. And here is why. If you're a hacker and you're stealing information, up to this point, you have had to find a third party to sell that information to. And depending upon the type of information, the third party pool gets smaller and smaller. If I'm stealing the design for a new stealth bomber from the Pentagon, then who are my potential buyers? It's a very slim pool, and it's a very risky thing to do. So information has value, or has had value, based only on who it could be sold to and what the information was. If I'm stealing a bunch of passwords, then I've got to use some Russian hacking pool that's going to put them up on the dark web, and we'll sell you 100,000 passwords for $1,000, or whatever the price is. But what about Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the information, is it not? The value of the information is inherent in the information itself. I mean, what a boon to hackers. Now, what has happened so far has been trivial, I promise you, to what is going to be happening very soon. Because hackers do one thing very well. They sniff out their target, they study their target, they analyze their target, and when they strike in a very big way. You've had a few big strikes already. The third largest Bitcoin exchange, nearly $100 million is out the window. The Dow, $65 million, even though that was unwound through a hard fork, which I totally disagreed with, by the way. There's some thinkers in the room. I love that. Good. So it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And what we have not seen yet, and that does not mean it has not happened, is we have not seen the individual users' wallets hacked. Now, had it happened, how are we ever going to find out? I mean, we're in an anonymous field now, are we not? It's not like that someone's going, good God, I lost $5,000 in Bitcoins. Where did it go? Well, it could have gone anywhere. We're looking at a number of potential alt currency exchanges for possible acquisition. So I've been spending a lot of time converting Bitcoins to Ethereum and Ethereum to Dow and Steam and you name it. I frequently will lose $3,000 to $4,000 in one night simply because I'm tired. Think about that. No, really. So when you're doing a currency exchange, you've got your Bitcoin wallet, you've got your exchange wallet, and then you've got your receive wallet in whatever currency it's going to be. Let's say it's Ethereum's. So I've got three things I've got to juggle. And after I've done this 100 times, my brain gets juggled. And I get my wallets confused. And then what happens? That money disappears. Well, it doesn't actually disappear. The exchange is usually the beneficiary, but there's no way to recover this. No way. So, and if I can lose the money, I promise you other people can too. So that's one thing, and that's losing it through stupidity. But I think what is far more serious is losing it through hacking. And how does that happen? I know people, especially in California, a lot of strange people in California, that have $100,000 or more on their smartphone, wherever my smartphone is. I know I have one. Anyway, $100,000 on a smartphone. And they say, well, I'm using the Mycelium wallet, and it's secure. It's secure? Give me your phone number, and in 5 minutes, I will have all of your Bitcoins. Now, you think that's bragging. It is not. How do you do it? There are at least 100 million telephones in this world that have spyware on it, including keyloggers. How do you get that? Has anybody ever visited a porn site? None of the people here, good. But those outside who have, I promise you, I don't care which one you visited, you have a keylogger on your phone. How? If it's an Android, the first thing that happens is when you first do a drive-by of the site, it sets the download authorized applications flag on your phone. The first click, if you happen to see something that might be interested, I think I'd like to watch that, you now have the spyware on your phone. You all do if you've been there. Now, who's watching? I have no clue. Janice, is there any water anywhere? Oh, never mind, it's here. Sorry. Who's watching? I have no clue, but neither do you. But whoever it is, it's not anyone who has your best interest at heart. And what can you do with that spyware? Well, not just the keyloggers, but also screen capture. So what can you do? Let's assume you've got the spyware, and you have a whole group of hackers somewhere. Russia, the Ukraine, China, Kansas City, I have no clue, but they're somewhere. And they're monitoring all of these tens of millions of phones. And suddenly, you're into Bitcoins, and you download the Mycelium wallet, or some other wallet. Well, what's the first thing that happens? What are your seed keys? Where is it displayed? Now, let's forget about encryption. Let's forget about how secure everybody says these wallets are. To get your seed keys, you have to read them from a screen, do you not? Where is that screen? It's on your phone. Where has that phone been? Maybe to a porn site. All right, so now you have an infected device and someone is watching, and they have a piece of software in their keylogger that says, wait for anybody downloading any one of these 25 wallets. As soon as that happens, get ready. As soon as you run it, it'll say, the first screen that comes up will say, do you want your seed keys? Yes, no, whatever. As soon as that click happens, the very next screen is captured. Those are your keys. I now have your keys, if it's me. I'm not saying it's not me or it is me, but whoever it is has your seed keys. What does that give them the power to do? Pardon? Take all of your money. All they have to do is go, yep, I lost my wallet. Here's my seed keys. Will you do it? Oh, good Lord, I have 100 Bitcoins. I forgot that. I want them all now. In fact, convert them to my Ethereum account immediately. And I'm going to convert that to something else. And pretty soon, you can't trace it. You will never find it. And you will never recover it. Now, has that been happening? I don't know. If it hasn't, I would certainly be surprised. But I promise you this, just like a massive hack of an exchange or the Dow, there will come one day where simultaneously everybody's wallet is emptied. Now, then that will make the news. But by then what? It's too late. Because it's always too late when we find out about a hack. The Office of Personnel Management in America was hacked in 2015 by somebody who took the records of 23 million employees of every employee of the US government for the past 50 years, including all of our top secret cleared employees. That hack began in 2013. It was discovered in 2015. This is the problem. And so, why am I even into the Bitcoin arena? Number one, because I see where alt currencies are going. Cryptocurrencies are here to stay. They will not go away. It is Pandora's box, for good or ill. You will not shove this back in the box. It does not matter what governments want to do. And we all know what they want to do. Number one is collect taxes. Well, that's really hard in the Bitcoin arena, isn't it? Very difficult to do. And in some other currencies, even more difficult. But governments will have to bite the bullet eventually because you cannot suppress it. It is like trying to suppress drinking alcohol. No matter how illegal you want to make it, people will drink alcohol or smoke weed or whatever it is they want to do. And now that the box has been opened and we are using it, it will not go away. So it's here to stay, and I know that. And I see that it will become, if not Bitcoin, it will be some alt currency that will become the standard for the world at some point. And I believe that will be at some point in the near future. In its current state, we will have chaos, absolute chaos. Not because we don't understand it or we can't understand the math or it's not adopted properly, no. Because there is no security whatsoever. Of who am I most worried about? I don't have a clue. I do know that the world knows or thinks that I have money, and lots of it. They perceive me as an old, weak man and an easy target.
For McAfee, it's not about paranoia, but about being prepared. But he's the first to admit that without being a little paranoid, he would never have thought up the idea for his antivirus software.
Have you always carried guns, even in 30 years ago?
Since I started McAfee, of course I carry guns everywhere. The thought is that if we kidnap him, cut off his ear, and send it to his wife or his company or somebody, someone's going to give us a few million bucks just to let him go.
His security detail are ready for anything.
Mini 14, Ruger, and then I got my Noisy Cricket, close and personal. It's my backup.
And what, you've used these things before?
If
I have to.
This is an ex-cop. This is ex-military. I'm an ex-programmer.
Who are you most worried about here in Portland? I mean, it's a quiet place. It's a long way from, there's it's not a particularly dangerous city.
Well, what is a dangerous city? Dangerous to whom? Probably not dangerous to you. Bill Gates, who lives in a far safer city, surrounds himself with hundreds of security people who are highly armed and very aggressive. You know, we read in the paper yesterday where his people attacked some journalists that got too close to him. You know, is he paranoid? And he lives in a far safer city than this?
This is a show about our future. The world is facing a lot of big challenges right now.
Climate change,
creating responsible AI,
misinformation,
income inequality,
dealing with infectious diseases. But I believe we can solve them. How will artificial intelligence impact society? Crafted text to my son using Gen Z slang. Yo fam, what's good? How you vibing?
At a certain point, AI will be good enough to build a better AI. So AI builds a better AI, which builds a better, which builds 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 better.
It's getting hard to write science fiction.
There's always been conspiracy theories. We underestimate how creative Americans are.
Bill Gates is part of a reptilian race that includes Tom Hanks and Lady Gaga.
Entertainment and information are a lot closer together than they ever have been before. There's no way to stop it.
I don't have the solution.
Come on, Bill.
We have to give up hydrocarbons almost entirely. Climate change benefits by having lots of young activists.
I operate from love of my home and the people.
I learn from them just like I do from the scientists coming up with the breakthroughs.
We have the obscene situation where there are 3 people, you being one of them, who own more wealth than the bottom half of America. Is the system working? In your judgment, is it working? What do you think?
So we've got a lot of work to do. The sooner, the better.
My hope to eradicate malaria in my lifetime.
I want to eradicate in my lifetime. It's a tougher constraint, so.
If Bill Gates didn't exist, we'd have to make him up. If we did, no one would believe the character.
We have to drive innovation to get ahead of these challenges.
Do you think we can do it?
Absolutely.
Hi there, I'm Will Ferrell, one of the greatest actors in the world. A long time ago, back when I was at Saturday Night Live, I met a guy who was hired as a writer the same week I was hired. He wrote a bunch of sketches for me and eventually became the head writer of SNL. And over the years, he became one of my closest friends. And then one day, I got this email. Hey, Will, something I need you to know. I'll be transitioning to live as a woman.
I don't doubt that Will is my friend, but I'm not Andrew Steele anymore.
It was just, whoa.
I love this country so much, I just don't know if it loves me back right now.
Harper, would you want to do a road trip as this new version of yourself and at the same time figure out what this all means to us?
You recognize this guy? This is a Hollywood movie star.
No.
You don't recognize
Okay, that's okay. Roll up the window.
Were you a little worried about how to talk to me when I came out to you?
Yeah, probably a little nervous.
There are no ground rules with friends, I'm telling you. I invite any friend of mine to ask me these questions. I am not afraid to talk about them.
There's a question. Do you think you're a worse driver as a female driver?
That's the dumbest. That is so, no, that is so, oh, fuck you.
Zing.
But I am.
Woo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is my friend Harper.
How you doing?
Nice to meet you, bro.
Hey, not a bro, though. It's a she, but that's okay.
Sorry.
This is probably around the age where I started to feel just kind of weird.
Yeah.
I used to come out to these kind of places before, and then I transitioned and I got a little afraid. You know what I'm saying? Come out. I'm not really afraid of these people. I'm afraid of hating myself. All I want to do is live.
Oh, Dunkin' Donuts.
No.
We've not done one fun thing.
Name one fun thing we've done.
Donald Trump says he's safe and well after reports of gunshots described to have been fired in his vicinity. Local officials in Palm Beach in Florida say it happened in the grounds of his golf course while he was playing. An AK-47 assault rifle has apparently been recovered.
The assassination attempt on former President Trump at one of his golf courses in Florida. Trump spoke about it overnight after the suspect appeared in court for the first time. Rachel Scott is in West Palm Beach with the latest on the investigation. Good morning, Rachel.
George, we are learning new details this morning. Officials say this is where the suspect was camped out for nearly 12 hours in those bushes. Just over those hedges is the golf course. A Secret Service agent just one hole ahead, spotting the barrel of a rifle sticking out.
Keep walking!
Overnight, new body camera video showing the moment officers arrested the 58-year-old man who they say camped out on Donald Trump's golf course for 12 hours, allegedly trying to assassinate him.
What's your name, Austin? Ryan?
Trump was moving across the fairway near the fifth hole. A Secret Service agent yelling out "gun," spotting a barrel of a rifle sticking out from the fence.
All of a sudden, we heard shots being fired in the air, and I guess probably 4 or 5. And it sounded like bullets, but what do I know about that? But Secret Service knew immediately it was bullets, and they grabbed me.
The former president recounting it all during an online conversation on the platform X, formerly known as Twitter.
I was with an agent, and the agent did a fantastic job.
Secret Service immediately surrounding Trump and taking him to a safe location.
Ruth tried to enlist in the International Legion of Foreign Fighters in Ukraine, but was considered too old.
We need 100,000 people here fighting.
Instead, he became a recruiter. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams was in contact with Ruth for more than a year.
Ryan Ruth seemed very sincere, but at times, perhaps somewhat naive. At one point, he even sent me an audio track of a song that he'd apparently recorded about the carnage caused by the war in Ukraine. He certainly did not give the impression of being a hardened fighter.
Just last week at the debate with Kamala Harris, President Trump was lukewarm in his support for Ukraine.
Do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal.
I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up.
Could that exchange have triggered an unstable man into carrying out an unthinkable act?
Donald Trump says he's safe and well after reports of gunshots described to have been fired in his vicinity. Local officials in Palm Beach in Florida say it happened in the grounds of his golf course while he was playing. An AK-47 assault rifle has apparently been recovered, and a man is in custody.
If you think that the information I'm sharing with you, my thoughts that I'm sharing with you, is of any importance at all, then please continue supporting me financially if possible, and certainly with your prayers, because most of the time I can't sleep properly at night, and I don't want my work to be in vain. It actually makes me mad knowing that there are people who are too lazy to even click the like button on a video, or they just simply don't care. It takes a lot of my time putting all this together, a lot of my personal time, my family time goes into making this content. A lot of self-sacrifice and isolation. I try to absorb as much as I can, and I try to warn people of what's happening, and I try to get them thinking about things and compare what's happening with scripture. I'm trying my best to get the word out there. Don't just sit there and do nothing about it. We have to hinder the system till we're here. Ask yourself, would God be happy how you spent your life? Imagine going to heaven and the Lord is asking, what have you done for him? Well, nothing really. I was just sitting and watching YouTube all day. I haven't even supported those who did the work, who labored for you, Lord. Well, and if that's the case, you'll suffer a major loss at the judgment seat of Christ, believe me. And it's completely up to you, it's your decision. There's a bunch of weak and fake Christians, and your illusionary fortune will be wiped out by the Antichrist system. Trust me. And the time for you to stand up against tyranny is now, right now. And what I'm about to say, think about this hard and deep. What you do now will determine what you will be in eternity. And really think about it. Like me, for example, I know that I will never reach an old age, but what I will do in these few years that we have left will be my rewards in heaven, and who I will be in heaven, what my character is. I don't want to waste any more time with nonsense. Things are serious, things are getting worse. It's the beginning of sorrows, after all. And I know that some of you will say God is in control. Yes, of course He is in control, but He expects us to be His workmanship, to be the light in this dark place, to speak up. Anyways, just know that I'm showing my love by speaking this way, by being blunt. The time for games is over, so you better get a grip. You're running out of time, we're all running out of time, and those who pray and do support me, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I love you all, and I pray for you. So, take care of the body of Christ, remember that we have power, and others try to imitate that power. Even devils themselves try to imitate that power. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. So, take care and thank you for sticking with me for such a long time. Bye bye.
Make some noise for Miss Harris, our future president. Let's get this done, Atlanta. I'm so happy to be here, Atlanta.